Hey y'all, how's it going? I'm trading the ES futures on a 2000 tick chart with a 21 EMA. So I've got the overnight highs up here and the overnight lows down here. These are our key levels for the day. So I started trading right around here. I didn't mean to move that just now. I started trading right around here. This is 8 o'clock Central Time. And so right when I started trading here, I saw we have this support forming. I saw we have this EMA going sideways. So it's clear we're going into this smaller range within this larger range. And of course, this larger range, it's not confirmed off the lows, but this is the overnight low, and that acts as a range. And so here, notice how we have this uptrend, break, new high, and then we reverse back down. That's very typical because when an uptrend gets a break and a new high, the trend is considered played out. Just like on the opposite side, when a downtrend gets a break and a new low, the trend is considered played out. And so, but we have to remember, price action levels get bigger as more time goes on. So we made a new high with the wick right there. Notice how that wick on that trend goes there. The wick here is a little bit higher. So the uptrend is played out with a break and a new high. Then we get this reversal back down. Now, about the price action levels getting larger as more time goes on, we have to consider on a bigger picture, this really didn't make a new high. It's just uptrend, break, attempt at a new high, and it's holding off the same resistance level that the trend started finding. And so you can view this as uptrend, break, and then first attempt at a new high, second attempt at a new high, failure. So notice how after you made the new high on the smaller picture, you have this smaller reversal, and then after you have the two attempts at a new high on a bigger picture, you get a bigger reversal. So that's just how price action levels work. Now, when we bounce right here, because when price comes off one side of the overnight, you expect price to try to reach the other side. Just like in a regular range, when you come off one side, you expect to reach the other side. You expect to go from each side to side. And so, same thing with an overnight level right here. Now, when you have two bounces that don't reach the other side, that's the first sign of a bullish imbalance, when you start finding resistance way before you get down to the other side. That's the first sign of a bullish imbalance. Of course, that can easily recover, but when it does start to form, you have to be careful of entering against the imbalance unless there's a good entry. And so at this point here, we're starting to form this bullish imbalance, and we rush above the EMA. We start going into this uptrend right here, and then we get this entry right here, and it's into this trend line here. Now, there's situations where you can enter into a trend like that, enter short into a trend like that. Say you have an overshoot and it's at a good level, it's at a good context area. But in this situation, you got to consider that possible imbalance that's forming. You just want to be less risky. You don't want to enter right into a trend line like that, even if you have an overshoot, even if it has good context, because there's even more context, which is the bullish imbalance. That's part of the context, and that's not working for you if you're entering against it when there's some kind of resistance in the way. So what I was hoping to see was like a rush below and get a lower high below the EMA. But instead, we got another entry, which ended up being even better because at this point, we're not entering into this trend line right here. We still have the overall big picture entry, which is uptrend, break, first attempt at a new high, and then second attempt at a new high. We didn't get a clear entry at first, but then we got this right here. We kind of made a double top on a big, we look here, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a quintuple top. But we clearly did like a quick double test right there. And then even on the smaller picture, when you look at this uptrend right here, of course, this uptrend is that second attempt at a new high for this bigger uptrend. But when you're making a triple bottom, there's going to be people trading at smaller pictures. So they see uptrend, break, attempt at a new high, and then a tick higher and nearly a trap bar right there. And so, but yeah, I was trading that as the big picture, uptrend, break, two legs at a new high, and then we get this, it's not a lower high, but it's a double top. The double tops often act as a lower high. And so, anyway, that's why I like that right there. I wasn't concerned about the EMA because we have been chopping straight through the EMA the whole time. I was concerned about entering into that trend line while having a imbalance there. So, anyway, that's why I like that right there. Very strong area, very big picture. Once again, look at that uptrend break. Two huge attempts at a new high off of a very clear resistance level. We have 5 taps off those highs right there. And then as soon as we ticked it right here, we just ticked a little bit higher and just shot way lower, closing on its low. So I liked riding that to the end of the range there. So I wasn't gonna bet on the range rules playing out all the way down to here because, once again, we have this forming right here, and it could easily just, bounce off those lows and continue higher. So now I have this marked right here. So this is a lower high. It's not the cleanest looking lower high setup itself, but you have to consider the context. Like I said, for the same reason I was taking this right here, if you had missed out on getting in on this trade, then I would just take this lower high. Even though it's not a perfect lower high, it's kind of getting a little bit sideways. It's not having perfect signal bars or anything until here. But by the time if you enter on that low, you don't have quite enough room. But I would just take it right here if I could. Obviously, you don't get filled until down here. This is where the real bar triggers because you wouldn't want to enter on that green bar right there. But I would attempt to take this lower high right here if I was not in on this trade here because the context is so good, the big picture context, and then it actually just rushes below the EMA and then forms a lower high. That's a reason itself to enter it. So once again, I like that lower high for the same overall context as I like this. So we push lower here, and yeah, by the way, I did not add on because I don't add on. It's a psychological thing for me. I don't add on. It's a rare occurrence whenever I would be in a situation where I could add on anyway. So I just avoid it. Now anyway, we push lower here. Now we retest this range level right here, this range low. So we break out. Now I see that there's 2 legs up. You can draw that. You get that correction. You start the second arrow, and as soon as it reaches that measured move, it reverses back down. And so if we had gotten just something a little bit bigger picture, I would have liked it. But notice how it's all fitting into this uptrend. It's right into this trend line, that entry. If we had gotten like a bigger break that actually broke this trend and made it so it's not a one leg up, if we had like a first entry clearer break and then a second entry, then I would have been more into this. But this is really just one push up right there. It's all within the same trend. It's closing into the trend line, so I avoided it. But it does push down. It nearly reaches that overnight low. So these overnight highs and overnight lows are very important. You can tell price was trying to reach this level down here, but it didn't quite reach it. So anyway, at this point here, when we rush above the EMA, this is a perfect place to look for a reversal pattern. Notice how this uptrend, it didn't even hold for a third time off the highs. And so you can really just view this as downtrend, break, new low, and then immediately reversing back above the EMA. And so if we had gotten a reversal pattern, that would have been great. Instead, we just got a choppy higher low, which I wasn't into that. It's just because it could easily tick higher and then make a failed second entry, which would end up stopping out your lower high. You want to avoid the choppy stuff. There's occasions when entering in chop is fine if you can tell what prices are doing, but this is just, some are trying to buy off this EMA, some are trying to short off this range. You would want a clear entry, like a failed second entry, not just a higher low, because a higher low is kind of like it's kind of like a failed first entry if you think about it. And so if it's not, if you don't have perfect context for it, then it's better to wait on a failed second entry. So anyway, we push on up here. We reach this overnight high again. As soon as we break out of it, we rush back below, but the EMA holds perfectly. We just bounce right off of it. It gets very choppy, but you can see that EMA holding, and we push back up. So now this uptrend here has a break and a new high. We attempt to reverse back down, but the EMA holds. And so this, once again, you could expect a reversal pattern from this area, pushing below. But instead, we just hold on the EMA and get a second leg up. So now we have uptrend, break, a couple legs at a new high, and then a larger attempt to reverse. So once again, uptrend, break, 2 legs at a new high, attempt to reverse. This is also a place to look for a reversal pattern, but nothing happens. We just bounce up here. And so I don't like going long right here because it's really just a first entry, and then by the time you're entering right into this last high swing, and that's also into the high of the day. I would just want to see a clear second entry before entering long, because when you break out of a range, price will try to fade back in because most breakouts fail, and so you want to see a second entry, not just a first entry. So anyways, we push up higher here. We make this new high. Now you can see these 2 legs back. It's not the very big picture. This is actually one of the smallest picture trades I've taken in a while. But we're continuing that breakout, and then we have first entry long, second entry long. Now, on a bigger picture, we can tell this is one leg down, but it's still significantly broken here enough to where we can clearly see those two legs down. And so if we play the small picture and just go for small target and small stop, then you can still play the smaller picture stuff. And so we got this higher low right here, which usually I want to see, once again, like I'm saying, I like to see bigger picture higher lows, ones that have a more clear swing with more separation from the previous bar. You notice how it kind of just ticked lower there and went up. Usually I enter on clear stuff, like lower high like this, where it's a clear lower high from that previous swing, not just a tick lower from a bar. But considering we just retested the overnight low after two legs back, it's this higher low is relative in size to these two legs back right here. And so it's not like you have, it's not like it's just two huge legs back and then a tiny higher low, because then what would happen then is likely you get stopped out when it tries to make a bigger higher low. And so this higher low is relative in size to these two attempts lower here. It's only an 8-point target. It's within this swing right here, so there's really no reason for me not to take that right there. And also, by the time I wasn't going to enter on this, I want to mention, so the reason I did not like entering on this is because I didn't want to just take a second entry that's pushing below the EMA. I was afraid it would bounce right off the EMA, because once again, it's not a huge picture trade. It's just a pretty small second entry, because once again, it's not like it's two huge legs like that. It's just it's pretty small. And so, but that's why I didn't mind this small higher low, as long as I don't go for a huge target or anything. Just keep it within that resistance level. So anyway, we push up higher here. We start going choppy right here. We push up. We don't reach the EMA there. We continue higher though. We start going sideways. At first, this range is more like this, and then I just extended it as more time went on. And then I wasn't going to take any shorts off of here after we got that second entry short. I didn't want to enter on that. There's no good signal bar. And at first, of course, this uptrend was more like this. We started overshooting, and then by the time we started pushing out the second time here, that's when it was more clear that we had this high right here. And so I didn't like that. I would rather have a good signal bar below the EMA. The EMA is straight up, so I'm not going to enter into the EMA with a bad signal bar. I would want to get below the EMA with a good signal bar, with room to those lows. And so shorts aren't out of the question. There's nothing good setting up here yet. And then we have this first attempt down, second attempt down. We don't quite reach those lows, but we break. We start pushing lower again. This right here, we make a double top, but notice how the EMA, it's still pushing up there. And then it was struggling a lot to get through the EMA, and then we barely got through it, and price wasn't even bearish enough to reach the other side of the range. And so when we pushed back above, I wasn't going to enter on another bar into the EMA. It's clearly prices are wanting to go in an uptrend here. And so after we push lower here, we have these couple legs down, and then at that point we have this double top, so that's when I raise this to here. Very clear highs right there. And then this right here, notice how we have this two legs back. Obviously this leg right here is a lot more sideways, but you can tell that they're connected to each other. Perfect measured move. Of course it went a little past it, but you can see those two legs back. The measured move has been met. And then I entered on this with a limit order. I actually got filled on this pullback back here with this bar, which I was getting stressed out on it because I didn't want it to reach the target. I didn't want to get filled. I was afraid the target was going to get filled before I was even in the trade. And so of course if that happened, I wouldn't have been able to enter, but luckily it did not go all the way up at first. I was able to get filled on that, and then it went back up, and then I got filled on this push up higher there. And so then we continue higher here. We overshoot this trend. And so when you overshoots lead to breaks. Look what happened there. And then notice how after that overshoot, we have these two legs down here. So pushed on through that measured move. Now, now anyway, so we push lower here. We get this lower high. Now I wouldn't want to take this lower high because we've just been going so bullish at this point. We're in this uptrend. I would just want to look, I wouldn't want to try to get those shorts down. I would just want to wait on a couple legs back to look for a long with the trend, not going against the trend there. And so after we have this push down here, break, second push down, it would be fine to look for a long once you rush above the EMA, but unfortunately it gets so choppy and no clear entries. And then we continue pushing lower here. It pushes straight through that key entry point. Now, when you have an overshoot, like I said, it leads to breaks very commonly. And so you have to keep that in mind, but it is possible for trends to recover. I mean, it's possible for, an overshoot and then the key entry point to hold. You just have to be careful about buying off of it. I usually don't like to buy right off the key entry point right after a huge overshoot. I like to wait for something to get above the EMA and reconfirm the trend. But anyway, so where was I? Yeah, so there were no longs in here. We push lower here. We continue pushing lower. The trend line does not hold there. We just continue on lower, and then now that's here. That's where we are here. So that's it for the video. I hope it helped out in some way. Hope you all found this useful, and yeah, I'll see you all next time.